Hello and welcome. My guest today is Greg Critchfield, a veteran financial strategist who has spent over 15 years helping law firms across the US move beyond practice and into business. As a partner at FinOp Group, he provides fractional CFO services and custom dashboards that give firm owners the real-time visibility they need to scale with confidence. Today, we are diving into the hidden debt that sinks successful-looking firms and why many brilliant attorneys are actually blind to their own case values. We will also discuss how to build a data-driven culture where every dollar of marketing spent has a clear, measurable job to do. Greg, welcome to the Growth Switch.
Great. Happy to be here. Thanks, Alex.
Our pleasure to have you. Do you want to give a little bit of a background as to how you started your career and got to do what you do today?
Sure. Yeah, I started out in public accounting coming out of college, and it, I lasted through two busy seasons, and it just really wasn't for me. So, started working in industry accounting, and then became the CFO of a law firm out here in Denver, a large personal injury law firm. And that's kind of where I got my teeth cut in the industry. Um, really started just liking um, just the work I was doing, people I was working with, and the type of accounting work that was involved. And it really struck a chord with me. It so happened that a lot of my friends happened to be attorneys as well. So as I worked there, I just started to see that there was a big gap in the way the law firms were managed. These multi-million dollar companies were being managed, more like a practice and not like a business.
Mm.
And there were just so many areas that they could use help in, and not necessarily from a full-time CFO. So that's kind of where the idea was thought of, and then I went out on my own, started just getting some clients on the side while still had a full-time job. And as soon as it was big enough, I just took the leap, and now we're about 30 clients nationwide, all law firms, and we're just rock and rolling.
Awesome, awesome. And coming to that realization that something that looks as a successful practice on the outside might not necessarily be what it is in reality. Do you have any personal stories that resonated, and displayed that to you specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I guess really the main one that stuck with me my whole life, and um, I only started really revisiting it once started this profession, was a really great friend of mine, still is.
Mm.
His dad was an attorney, um, super successful, at least from the outside it looked like. And um, they had the BMWs and the nice house and everything, took a lot of trips, and everything looked great. And I mean, that's probably where my interest in um, attorneys and law work kind of started from. I really looked up to him. But as we became adults and talked with my friend, I learned more and more about, his financial situation and just the mismanagement of his law firm. And it wasn't necessarily the fact that he was dumb or stupid or just didn't know what was going on. It was more he just didn't know how to manage the business side of it. He practiced great law and had great results, and anybody that knew him would tell you that. But when it came to running the business, budgeting, setting out forecasts, and figuring out how much money he has to spend on, employees and things like that, he just had no idea and was kind of flying by the seat of his pants, and it ended up biting in the end, and was really stressful for not only him but his entire family. So that's kind of where the passion for me comes from, and being able to shed some light um, to these attorneys and law firm managers, and help them see the things that to me seem obvious, but to them they're just not even looking at it yet. So
Mm.
that's probably the biggest thing that stuck with me.
I think there are a lot of attorneys that are brilliant at what you do. They're brilliant at practicing law. And because of that, they rely on their intuition when it comes to something such as their numbers, where they might not have the expertise, but they go with their gut feeling. how do you usually start that conversation to have somebody that might be skeptical of listening to somebody outside of their practice open up and have that conversation to begin looking at the numbers and really get to the bottom of what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, unless, it's really kind of getting them to open up and try to talk about their business. So if I start asking them certain questions about their business, how much money did they make last year is usually one they can answer. But how much
Hmm.
how much have you spent in marketing over the last year? And of that marketing, how much of that has turned into good viable cases? How much have you
Hmm.
spent in payroll costs, and how does that compare across the industry? And you just start asking those questions. They realize a lot of the times those things, they really weren't um, coming to mind when they were making those decisions. So they start to see the value, and then I start to talk to them about regular reporting and things that I can regular meetings that I can host with them to go through their numbers and show them the things that I think are important, and then shed light on what they think is important and put it in a way that they can easily understand and digest.
Do you have like a one specific number or North Star that's easy for somebody that doesn't have financial background to understand and use as a proxy for the financial health of their firm in the future when they work with you?
Well, I mean, a lot of research that I see on law firms. A simple one would be, you want to keep your revenue and your payroll, at least three times. Your revenue should stay three times higher than your payroll at all
Hmm.
times, and a lot of time that's hard to do as you're scaling. Also, there's depending on the type of law firm you are, your marketing spend is going to be much different. Personal injury law firms will spend heap loads of money on marketing, whereas other more boutique law firms might not. And so it's really there's no North Star, I'd say, because it's such a wide range across the industry of different
Hmm.
law practices. But if you're getting specific and looking at like a PI law firm, things like that, then yeah, you can get some really good data and benchmarks to see how your firm's doing against its industry.
When you talk to the managing partners, to the owners of the law firms, do you ever come across them maybe being a little bit defensive about their numbers, saying that, well, our practice is unique, we do things differently? And how do you get through to them to build the trust, to build the relationship so they can take your advice and really improve the financial situation?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd say until I've earned the trust of the majority of the managing partners I work with, they really, they have in their mind what is their business is doing, how their numbers are looking, um, where all the spend is going, and but when I start to show them what it really looks like when I dive in, then they start to see that I'm not making things up. I'm literally just showing them what's going on within their business, and just trying to make it as understandable as possible. It really try to get away from just putting numbers in front of people, especially attorneys, because I found that really doesn't work well, but more like graphs and visual representations
Hmm.
of different KPIs or different metrics within their industry, within their law firm, and being able to compare that against their industry.
Hmm.
I mean, once they can see that I'm coming from a place of just showing them the data, and, I mean, kind of like a translator, then
Hmm.
I think they start to trust me more, and then they really start to lean on me and my team to help them move their practice to more of a business, set up different processes and procedures, set up budgets, set up forecasts, put in place you know different bonus, how they're going to bonus their associates, like make it more standardized and less just flying by the seat of their pants, and things like that, just making it more of a structured business.
Mm. But it all begins with show, don't tell. They need to see the numbers. They need to have that visual before they say, "Oh, we need to change something in the way we do operations."
Yeah, I think so. Because yeah, they'll have their ideas about their business, and then I'll have to show them what I'm really seeing, and then compare and contrast, and show them why they might be thinking the way they are, and why it really is another way, or maybe it is true what they're seeing, but let's look at this side as well. Maybe they're not seeing the whole picture.
Mm. Do you ever get pushback on that, even when you demonstrate the numbers to somebody and they say, yes, maybe that's it, but we are not putting it as a priority, or we don't actually think it's a big deal, and then they sort of, kick the problem down the road?
Sure. I mean, definitely a lot of the law firms we work with, don't necessarily want to be a business. They like the lifestyle practice that they've created. They make great money. They're not necessarily looking to scale their business. They're just looking to make good money, not work reasonable hours, and not have to worry about, you know, the the KPIs and the metrics that I
Hmm.
put in front of them. They just want clean books, be able to get their taxes done at the end of the year, and that's it. And that's fine. And that's probably the extent of the pushback is just basically, we don't really care to
Hmm.
look at that kind of stuff. So just do the books, make sure our taxes get done, make sure, if we get audited by the bar, trust accounts in order, then we're good. But then there's the others that really do want to scale, really do want to create a sustainable business, create a legacy, and those ones, then yeah, they're interested in how to do that and what types of business processes to put in place.
Mm. Would you say that approach, not just to practice law, but being in the business of law, is the biggest difference between, let's say, firms under 5 million a year and the firms that go 5 plus?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, the 5 million a year, that can still be just the solo practitioner or the smaller law firm that's not looking to scale. So I mean, again, you're making great money. Um, Once you're getting over that, and even less than that, once you're getting over the 3 million mark or so, and you're really looking to scale, then yeah, things get more complicated, but that's when they get more fun too. And as long as
Hmm.
you have your systems in place and you're creating good data in, then the types of things that you can pull out of your business to help management and other owners run their business, um, is just incredible now, and
Hmm.
it's so real time, and you're not making decisions on month old data anymore. You're able to look at things that happened yesterday and then pivot, and those are the times when you're looking at bringing in managers, more more overhead, which a lot of law firms and law firm owners have a hard time with. But I mean, as soon as you start to get into that high million mark, it's too much for just attorneys and paralegals and an office manager to handle. You need a full staff of people. You need HR, you need a true accounting team, billing, things like that. So that's you know it's like that tipping point where if you really choose that you want to go over that edge and try to scale,
Hmm.
I think that's where it gets really difficult for like that first year to 3 years. But then, once you figure it out, or at least figure out that piece of it, you move on, then
Hmm.
you reach another tipping point and it gets hard again. I think that's kind of how I've noticed it with my business too, and just what I've seen with the other law firms I work with.
Certainly. And it's always interesting how in business there are almost like laws of physics at
Yeah,
certain levels of the same business, how everybody goes through the same sort of bottlenecks and restrictions that they need to solve in business to go to the next level.
for sure.
You mentioned 1 million as a milestone, 3 million. If somebody is starting a firm from scratch, and you had to draw them a roadmap of when they need to start looking at their numbers seriously, when maybe they need somebody uh, part-time, fractional, or maybe then full-time. What do those what does that roadmap look like typically?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, unless you're somebody that really understands numbers, and there definitely are those attorneys that do understand their numbers and know how to work QuickBooks, things like that. Um, if you're one of those types of people, then um, I think you can handle it on your own for quite some time. But that being said, I really do think whether it's you or somebody else, paying attention to your numbers right from the beginning is super important. I mean, you let it get away from you for a couple months or a year, and you just really don't know the direction that your business is going, um, and it could be going in the wrong direction. I mean, there's a lot of obviously when you're starting up, you're just you're fighting to get new clients, fighting to get money, and you're just working so fast,
Mm-hmm.
and the operation of your business and knowing your numbers and making sure things are running efficiently and effectively really go by the wayside. And so, like you said, it's kind of back and forth pendulum. You finally got all the clients. Now you take a break from clients. Now you work on your operations. And then you start to look at your numbers all of a sudden. You realize you haven't looked at them for a few years or a few months. And you're like, well, why did I take these people on? They're not even profitable or things like that. Why do we do this marketing campaign? We're not even getting anything from it and we're continuing to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I really think from the beginning, looking at your numbers, whether it's you or somebody else helping you from the beginning is super helpful. Keep you on top of things right from the beginning. And it will just help, it will speed up your growth. I really, if you don't, you'll just have setbacks along the way. And then just depending on your aptitude of it, I would think would be when you start to bring people in. I mean, a lot of the time we'll get brought in as soon as, a partner that's been doing the QuickBooks is just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm spending 20 hours every month on this. I should be practicing law. And then they give it up. Or, a slightly bigger law firm might have their office manager with a history degree doing their books just
Mm-hmm.
because she's there. And it's going fine. Then all of a sudden something, hits the fan and they immediately freak out and want to call in a professional to make sure everything's good. So, um, you know, once you get to the point that you have your office manager doing the bookkeeping and things, I would say that's a
Mm-hmm.
good time to bring somebody in to at least oversee it from a monthly or yearly basis, make sure the accounts are being reconciled correctly, the trust accounts in order, things like that. Um, but I mean, the earlier the better, I guess, to answer your question in a long way.
The better it will be. Greg, I want to come back to something that you just said in terms of the lawyers not knowing where their best clients are and the
Yeah,
different cases being of the different value. This is something we hear in our conversations quite a lot. That oftentimes the lawyers are so busy practicing law, they don't analyze who their best type of the clients or the type of case, and sometimes it's a very big difference in how profitable different cases are. And strategically, when they do have the numbers, it's very clear cut that, well, maybe we shouldn't do this type of work and we
yeah,
should do a lot more of that type of work because it's more profitable. So from the marketing perspective, that's always a big mistake that we discovered when that's not being observed properly.
sure.
What are some of the other big aha moments that you usually get when you start working with a firm owner and they start seeing the numbers clearly for the first time?
Yeah. I'd say one of the cooler ones that has happened over the last couple of years is working with larger law firms that will have, a stable of associates.
Hmm.
They'll have a number of partners and then a large amount of associates. They'll have some paralegals, things like that. And you know, talking to them and helping them to understand the value of leverage has
Hmm.
been something that has been challenging but also really rewarding for these law firms. And it's challenging in the way on my end to be able to show these law firm owners how, you know, by you, the partner, doing work that an associate could do, you are losing 40% value on that
Hmm.
particular hour. And making them be able to see it in real life, like looking at their clients and things like that. Um, so showing them the power of leverage, and then being able to work with these firms over a number of years, and then seeing these numbers where the partners have been working and they're billing out, over 60%, close to 70% of the billable hours coming from the partners. And then over the course of 3 years, it's dwindling down, and now the associates is going up, and it's getting close to 50. And just seeing that go,
Hmm.
and then profit margin in return, um, has been really exciting. And that's just, I think, the leveraging factor for the larger law firms, and being able to um, really get the law firm owners to see it and then manage to it has been very valuable. On the smaller side, a lot of law firms we work with have never done a budget, and so
Hmm.
just being able to put together a budget for them, and meet with them on a monthly basis and say, you know, hey, you know, this you spent $50,000 more in marketing here than you were expecting. Was this something that came out of the blue, or like were we planning on this? What's going on? Just getting them to talk about it just brings them more in tune with their business, and then they start to see where their money's going.
Hmm.
So budgets, forecasts as well. I think being able to, especially for personal injury law firms, being able to look at their caseload, and dissect their caseload based off the case life cycle, and be
Right.
able to then, um, assign values and then forecast for them. Over the
Hmm.
next 3 months, you should expect this much money. For the next six, or the following 3 months, it's going to be slow, but then you should get a big hit, like things like that, so they can then
Hmm.
um, adjust their marketing spend and such.
That's an interesting one, and I want to double click into that because, in addition to numbers and understanding where they spending money and where they making money, there's also a time delay being a factor. And oftentimes, when it comes to marketing initiatives, there is a delay between, especially if it's big corporate client or if it's a personal injury case that might have a very long life cycle. There is a delay between a marketing initiative that genuinely could be good and that number hitting the revenue. And if that's not taken into the consideration, then good initiatives getting switched off, and there are too little being generated later when the
Hmm.
firm hits a slump of all the cases being finished and suddenly not getting the workload that they were expecting at that point. So
Yeah.
how do you usually incorporate the timeline as part of the conversations?
Yeah. I mean, specific to what you're talking about, I mean, most of these attorneys have a very good idea of the value of the case the moment they sign it up. Within, a reasonable range, they can give a decent value to it. So rather than judging a marketing campaign based off the results that are going to happen 6 months to 2 years down the road, more so you should be judging it on the value that you're assigning the case. How many
Hmm.
cases did this marketing campaign deliver to you? Of those cases, what value did you assign to each of those cases? And then you're able to see, okay, this is a good campaign. These look like good cases. Let's continue with it. Or no, we didn't sign up as many, and the ones we did, just they really don't look like they're great cases, rather than waiting too long to assess it.
To give to the revenue. That's
Yeah,
also interesting because there was a lot of frenzy in the marketing world to make the wild promises about the revenue being generated from paid advertising campaigns.
yeah,
And of course, if you have, personal injury case that even if you signed, you might need to wait a year and a half before that money actually turns into revenue. If you try to judge the success of your current activities by revenue collected, it's everybody is doomed to disappointment and then the
yeah,
wrong expectations. They can overspend on a campaign before knowing if it's actually getting the right type of case in. And we've also seen, because of that short time view to revenue, um, just their own decisions being made and a lot of changes that were not necessary when slow and steady, based on the pipeline value and based on potential the case value, what you're talking about,
yeah,
produce a more consistent results, and the firms that stick with it long term get significantly better return on their marketing activities.
Yeah. I mean, the best law firms, personal injury law firms that I see, they will do a marketing campaign. They will get the cases that come from that marketing campaign, assign values to it, put it into a system, and judge the marketing campaign based off that initially. And
Hmm.
if it's even decent, they'll keep it going until they run their course. But then the key to it is at the end, once the cases do settle, putting up the actual value against what they were predicting it to be and making sure
Hmm.
that they're aligned all the way down. And then they're circling the loop and seeing, okay, yes, my prediction that this was a good marketing campaign turned out to really be good. Now let's throw some more money at these guys.
Hmm.
It's validating, making sure that you validate your assumptions rather than making your assumptions just forgetting about it, which
Hmm.
happens all the time
When it comes to marketing spend specifically, what are some of the other numbers that you like to look at? And I'll give you some of the metrics that we like to talk about, and I'd love to have your take on it. The most immediate is probably the cost per sales qualified conversation.
too.
So setting up a criteria and then seeing what's the cost of having the phone ring with that type of person.
Right.
And the other one that sometimes can be harder for law firm to quantify, but I think it's super important, is the ratio between average gross profit on that type of case and then the customer acquisition cost, and seeing if that ratio is in a healthy zone for the business.
Yeah.
So those are the two that we often talk about. What's your view on them, and what would you maybe add?
No, both those for sure. I mean, those are definitely biggies. Um, I mean, really, like the ones that I know that I've seen a lot of law firms do, and I think is valuable. Obviously, measuring the amount of intakes that are coming in from these of those intakes, how many turned into quality calls, um, and then, but so I guess a lot of what I would say I see law firms do is the two metrics that you mentioned, but then also looking at how they themselves as the law firm are handling the call or
Mhm.
the lead. So who's taking the lead? How have they done over their stats? How many have they signed up? How many have they released? And then of the ones that they have released, being able to see the reasoning as to why, so that you're making sure that the intake department's doing it properly. Um, Listening to calls, making sure that those are going appropriately, and just the efficiency, like how many are they getting through, things like that. Um, it's so more on the internal side, I guess, would be the internal metrics that I see a lot of firms going,
Mhm.
uh, just making sure that the beginning part of the pipeline is working as efficient as possible.
Intake is very, very important, and we have seen unfortunately bad examples of this when there are a lot of interesting clients and calls being generated, and then at the
Hmm.
handoff to the intake there is a drop off, and that's lost opportunities. That's the money has been spent on acquiring that call, and if you're not following up, then it's just a shame.
There's so many
What
marketing
happens?
companies I've talked to that say that exact thing. Like, it's not our fault. These are good things we're sending the firm. The intake department keeps screwing it up, and so I don't know.
I think this is where a good understanding of the numbers for the law firm is also important, because then they can see the whole cycle, not
Yeah,
just expecting the marketing as a line item on their P&L statement to also translate into revenue without taking in consideration all the other steps that are
yep.
necessary. From the conversations you've had, let's say specifically in the course of last year or so, what have you seen as the biggest marketing activity that firms overspend on unnecessarily, and what, from your opinion, they underspending on, which the bigger firm know and invest in?
Yeah. Um, well, I guess I lean towards talking about personal injury law firms mostly with regards to your question, just because that's where I see most of the marketing spend.
Hmm.
With all of the personal injury law firms, SEO obviously is the biggest one. Um, and and judging whether they're spending enough in SEO or not all depends on if they're monitoring it and seeing how well it's working. And so to be able to um, say like how much they should be spending, like a true number, would be hard without looking at data. But I would say that SEO is the largest one. And
Hmm.
to your point, I mean, you can spend way too little and not get the results and not think it works, or you can spend way too much or just more than you need to. Um, Maybe a lot of some of the bigger law firms I work with, I think, get to a certain point where with their SEO, they just keep spending and spending and spending and thinking that the more they keep going, it's just going to keep getting better and better. But I don't know for sure, not being an SEO expert, but I would think that it would kind of top off at a certain point, and I would, stop with the SEO spend at some point and start shifting to different criteria or different mediums. Billboards, I've seen a lot of. I live in
Hmm.
Denver, so there's billboards all over the place, as I'm sure there are everywhere. But um, billboards, uh, I see a lot of spend on radio advertising uh, and some TV advertising. Not, I think I can't tell if firms are. I think only the really large firms are doing that, but that speaking of TV spend, that's one that can be really tough that I've seen with a lot of law firms
Hmm.
is they get to a certain point as a personal injury law firm that they feel they have to do these things,
Right.
and then they'll do and it costs a huge amount of money, and they'll take the leap and they'll do it, and um, and they just it's hard for them to know how much return they're getting on that investment because it's not like they're clicking through anything. It's more branding and things.
Hmm.
So um, I've seen firms that maybe aren't big enough try to do that and kind of put themselves in a hole. I would say the TV advertising spend works better for more established firms that have the cash to be able to do it. Um, but yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but we'll try.
It's helpful. Thank you. I think from seeing firms of different sizes and analyzing their marketing data, there is definitely diminishing returns on some channels, depending on geography that you serve.
Yeah.
You can continue spending more and more up to a point, and then there could be a channel saturation. So it's just the same people seeing your message, and there is no
Hmm.
benefit of annoying them with frequent messaging if they don't need the
Right.
service right now. So there are limits. Of course, the law firms that are larger and they serve clients nationally or internationally, it's usually less so of a problem. Usually they can go much deeper for much longer on a single channel, but smaller local firms, they definitely hit that, at which point it's important to consider what are the options they have to advertise efficiently, and
Yeah.
also how do different channels come together in a unified strategy and to actually
Yeah.
produce the result.
For sure.
And that brings me to the next question. Many firms, many law firms, they try to diminish marketing function by just having one person with the responsibility of the team, that should be five or more marketing people. From your take on the financial, what's the real cost for a law firm when they under invest into in-house marketing function of somebody that should be looking after how they invest into marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be huge depending on like if depending on who's in charge of your marketing. So if there's nobody there or just one person, let's say there's nobody there and the partner's doing the marketing or the office manager. Um, I think a lot can be lost in terms of dollars just due to the lack of expertise.
Mm,
Um, and once you get a little bigger and maybe you hire a marketing person in there, um, I think that can help for sure. And but if that person's not supported and gets overloaded and just doesn't have the support they need to do their job well, then that can also be a problem, and you won't see the return. I mean, I think it staffing out your marketing really depends on if you want to, if you're just willy nilly putting your brand out there, just like I used to do when I first started, I just get my brand out there. I didn't really care. I just wanted it out there, um, whatever I needed to do. But as soon as you start to like really try to go after clients, um, and start actually putting money towards that, if you don't have an expert, not an expert, but at least a dedicated person to um, to deal with that, then there's no doubt you're going to lose money. Just
mm,
in the simple fact that leads are going to fall through the wayside, certain areas aren't going to be hit. I think I don't know how to put a number or value to it, but definitely um, not concentrating on your marketing and just letting somebody kind of do it is a loss in terms of money going out the door, but it's more of a loss in terms of money coming in because you're
mhm,
wasting it. Your money that you're putting out to try to get clients in is not being used as effectively as it could.
mm. Some of the justifications that I heard in my conversation, if the firm operates heavily on word of mouth and referrals, and they do occasional, conference or something like that, they will say that, oh, we don't have a marketing line item because it's all word of
Mm,
mouth. But then we actually look at the time that's non-billable that partners spend networking and keeping up the relationship or going to the conferences. Of course, there is a real cost behind
sure.
it. Um, what are some of the marketing blind spots when it comes to being, not having that marketing function, and then thinking that their marketing doesn't have a cost? What's the blind spots that you've seen there, and maybe how have you helped firms overcome that?
Yeah. Um, I would say just blind spot of the partners and associates um, knowing that that's their responsibility as well to be marketing the firm, and out there going to conferences and things like that. Um, that time, as you just mentioned, they don't take that into account as to the spend towards marketing necessarily. Um, so I think that loss of billable time compared to the
Mhm.
marketing time, and not um, tracking that is probably one of the bigger blind spots.
Putting a number of that is super
Yeah.
important. On the other end of the spectrum, if you're doing work with the law firm that do have a marketing partner, maybe an agency working with them, from your perspective, what does a good marketing agency look like? When you look at the numbers, what are the expectations and the standards that you judge them on?
Yeah. The better ones that I've seen, um, and I think to your point, it's using a multitude of mediums and having them work in concert, and 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 then being able to show the law firm owners and managers the results of what they're seeing. So, one group that we work with, they handle the SEO, they handle the billboard marketing, um, the radio, and then a couple other mediums. And and then at the end of each month, they get a report that shows how each of them did, how they worked together, and why they think they work together well, and and then what they suggest in terms of shift, in terms of spend, where maybe spend more in radio or something if we're seeing better results. Um, that's what I've seen. that really works well is using multitude of mediums, but tracking the results and showing it to the manager so that real time decisions can be made for the following month.
100%. Diversify channels that all work as the single unit for promote. That makes a lot of sense. For somebody in our audience that listens to this episode and they're not sure if they have a total handle on their numbers, what would normally be the first step if they are to reach out to you and inquire about how you could help them?
Yeah. Well, one thing I offer that not many firms have taken me up on yet is I'll just do a financial health check of your firm. You have to be willing to give some numbers on your firm, but if you give some numbers on your firm, tell me a bit about it. I can benchmark it against the industry for you and just give you a brief high level look at kind of what your firm looks like amongst your peers. Um, but beyond that, I think it would be great just to talk with somebody and have them, you know, address any questions they have. A lot of times, the way it starts is they'll reach out to me and either their trust account is out of whack or they're trying to get ready for taxes. Their wife told them they need to budget this year, something like that, and they'll call me and we'll just start talking. Um, I'll I'll get into their QuickBooks or whatever system they're using and give them a quick analysis, and then I'll be like, we need to take care of your books. We'll take care of your books. We'll take care of paying your vendors. We'll make sure your trust account stays in order, and that's just the baseline. And if you want to really take it up a notch, then we can help you more at the CFO level type um, responsibilities and help you put together budgets, help you analyze your associates against their targets. Just make sure that you are progressing forward towards uh, more sustainable business practices.
Hmm. Certainly. And the sooner it's handled, the better it is. Not
I really
waiting
think so.
until
Some of my
yeah,
best
until it's
clients
too
I
late.
started with from the very beginning, and they're really big now. And it's not because of me, but I like to think it
Partially.
helped a bit.
Certainly. Greg, where can our listeners find more about the work that you're doing online?
Yeah, my website, finopgroup.com, or my LinkedIn page, just Greg Critchfield, would probably be the two best for sure.
Perfect. We will make sure to link those with the show notes. Greg, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure
Thank
having
you.
you with
It's
us.
been great. Appreciate
Okay.
it.